Good morning. I believe we are live on our webinar here this morning. I believe we're live on our webinar, and I've also so the webinar, I've opened the webinar 2 minutes early, and I've also gone live in our leadership group because I know some of you are driving, or maybe you are in the salon and you haven't got such good Wi-Fi reception. I don't know. Anyway, so I'm going live in the group. The thing is, if you're in the group, if you're live on Facebook in the group, you're not going to see the slides. If you're with me on the webinar, morning Andrew, morning Emma, morning Sharon, you will of course see the slides. So it's Wednesday, September the 30th. It's not yet 8:30. Morning, Robert. Morning, Claire. Morning, Jackie. It's not yet 8:30, so I'll preamble for a minute before people come on. But I'm doing the webinar, the Business Bite webinar, Wednesday, September the 30th. But I've got my phone there, and I'm also going to be live for the next 45 minutes as well. Let's see how that works. So, thanks, Robert. I'm trying to be a little bit more adventurous. So this morning I thought I got this for my birthday, so I thought I would rock a little rockabilly look today. And morning, Debbie. Yeah, morning, Martin. Who else have we got here? Sharon, I think I said good morning. Morning, Jill. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Actually, I changed my lipstick at the last minute. Morning, Richard. What is the time? It is 8:30. So we should near enough have everybody. We'll get started. I'm going to try and keep this webinar today to 45 minutes. Once again, I do apologise on the Facebook. If you're watching on the live, you're not going to see the slides, but you can of course catch up. We will be releasing this webinar on our YouTube channel, so if you go to the Passion for Hair YouTube channel a little bit later today, we'll upload it there and you can watch it or watch it again. So an interesting morning this morning, a day, as I said, Wednesday, September the 30th, a day when we officially go into red alert with regards to the pandemic situation. And so that's an interesting day for us all. And a morning when we wake up to the news that the President of the United States and the guy Biden, who's running against him, have had the first presidential debate, which is part of their politics. It's part of what they do. And by all accounts, I haven't seen it all. I've seen a little bit of it all. I've seen a little bit of it, but it looked more like a barroom brawl than a presidential debate. And I think that for me, that just about sums up leadership right now. We are at a time when we need leadership so badly. We seem to have these situations that we have. Anyway, what we're going to focus on for the next 45 minutes, because we're the leaders of our business, it's our job to navigate our business through this situation that we have. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to focus on some of the changes that have occurred over the last week, because there have been changes for our businesses. I want to make sure that everybody is up to date. It's hard to stay up to date. I was still reading in bed last night, like 11 o'clock, trying to make sure that I've not missed anything. And if I have missed anything, like Boris did yesterday, forgive me, I'm doing my best. But it is hard to try and keep up with everything. All right. So now, knowing that we have a large Welsh contingent, I have read the Welsh guidelines yesterday and trying to work out what's different to what you're doing to what we're doing. But please correct me if I miss anything or nothing's quite right. Correct me. And if we need to, we'll double check it, etc., etc. So let's get going straight away, and we're going to start with this little slide, which now the government publish every week, and we're in week 37. Every single week. Good morning, Alan, and my deepest condolences. They lost their beautiful, beautiful Linda. I only had the pleasure of meeting her once. She is the most adorable, adorable lady. So my deepest condolences, Alan. And Milka's trying to get in touch with you because, of course, we don't want to disturb Michael, but we want to talk to you about the Business Counts event. So anyway, this slide that we have on, and actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my camera around so that you may have seen this slide. I don't know how this is going to work. It might not work at all. It's not going to work. Why is that not going to work? No, I'm making a terrible mess of that. I'm so sorry. You're going to have to go on the webinar and see. But the slide, long story short, the government release a document. It's pages and pages and pages long. I think last week's was like 48 pages long. And it's basically all the evidence. And I know that sometimes people are confused, but when we look at the evidence, you can see sometimes why they are doing what they're doing. Now, if you're friends with me on social media, and you follow me on social media, I did put this on my story last week. And it basically is a graph that shows the contacts with infections, which contact they believe that person got the infection through. So week 37, we're actually on week 39 now, I believe, but they haven't released yet week 38. I can't wait to see it. You'll see that by far the biggest rates of infection are in households. So in other words, once one person gets it, everybody in the household gets it. So that's why, of course, they're asking people not to visit each other's houses, keep the numbers down, try and keep to your household or your bubbles, etc., etc. Because the second highest infection is household visitor, and then the third is when people are partaking in leisure activities in the community. Visiting friends and relatives is next. Other or workplace is next. Then it says other, travel, unknown, education, healthcare, social care or home care, and then right down there we are third from bottom, personal services. That's what hairdressing and beauty, tattoos, that's what we come under, is those personal services. Only two categories below us: shops, which is interesting, and prison and detention facilities, right? So some people have already said maybe we all need to go to prison temporarily, but that's only in jest. Of course, no one wants to do that in real life. But it's very interesting. I want to congratulate you all. I think we've done a great job in our industry. They're doing a great job in shops. And in fact, one of the things that Boris has said is that within business settings, for the most part, businesses are doing a great job in being able to contain the virus and the infection rates. So congratulations to us. And I know that your voice too is saying, yeah, but I know a salon that are not doing this, and I know a salon that are not doing that. I'm going to talk about that the next thing. But it might help you to understand why you might think, where are they? Why aren't they going and, see into these salons that are not complying, etc., etc. It's because salons are way down on the infection list. Now, should that change? Maybe we'll see that change. Because oh, that's very interesting. My slides have jumped around. Good job I could see that. What I wanted to show you was this. So this is off the government website, and it says will you go over there? No, you won't. It says employers must follow all instructions from authorities in the event of new local restrictions. So in other words, what they're saying to us is that we have to watch the measures and the rules, and many of them now they have mandated into law. But we also have to watch out for the local restrictions, and we have to follow those. But here's what the reason I've brought this particular slide up here. It says how to raise a concern. And in this particular example, they're talking to employees. But similar advice is on there for consumers, and it's also on there generally. So it says contact your employee representative. So if an employee they're asking if an employee has a problem, then please go and speak to your employee representative first. Just in the same way, of course, that there was this big talk about reporting your neighbour, okay, if they had more than 6 people there. And then, of course, days later, they changed that and they said, well, talk to your neighbour first. Then it says contact your trade union if you have one. But this is the bit that's really interesting. It says contact HSC, which is the Health and Safety England. Is it Health and Safety England? I'm now saying that and it don't sound right, but anyway, we know HSC. So we're talking about England here. Don't know if I couldn't find this for Wales. Yeah, the Health and Safety Executive. No, I think this is this HSC is something England. It's Health something England. Anyway, you can telephone, right? Or can you see there? It says working safely inquiry form. So there is a form. I clicked on it. This is what it looks like. And you can make a working safely inquiry. And you can do this as a member of the public. In other words, where businesses are not complying, they're asking people, you can fill out this form, and then you send the form off and you can report. Right, so I know a lot of people are frustrated about, etc., etc. But they are putting in place ways that people can report, and they are encouraging people to report. Now, if you have got a salon near you that are not complying, my advice to you is to call your local environmental health, because, and I've done it. Okay, I have called my environmental health. We had a salon that weren't complying, and my concern, right, is that infection rates within our industry go up and they close our industry. And I told my local actually maybe that is the Health and Safety Executive, Jill, and Public Health England, PHE. Jill, you're right, Health and Safety Executive. You should have pushed it one stage further, Jill, but it's come to me. See, the brain's an amazing thing. It's Public Health England. That one there is the Health and Safety Executive. Thank you. It is. Anyway, when I spoke to my local environmental health, I told them if I have to close my business, my primary concern is after everyone's health and safety, of course, but my concern and my job is to preserve my business and keep everybody in a job. And if I have to close my business, this is what I told them, I will hold you responsible for not upholding the local rules, right? Maybe you should do the same thing too, because we have to hold people accountable. I know somebody that called their local environmental health, and they said, well, we're not able to come out because we're all working from home currently. I call bullshit on that, and I call those people need to get out here and they need to help us all keep it going. So and we need a little bit of that. Everybody needs it, right? A little bit of that chutzpah, I think they call it. Is that right, Robert? But our industry need a little bit of that, and that's only us that can do that, right? So I thought that was something really very interesting and something that we should be looking at. Now, of course, what they've mandated many of these things into law now, and what we do have is a situation where not wearing the right face coverings, the right PPE in the salon, is a £200 fine. It's not quite clear yet whether the fine is for the employee or for the employer. Okay, but I do know this, that there's also a £200 fine for a client in England that doesn't wear a face covering, because I think I'm right in saying in Wales the client doesn't have to wear a face covering, right? So, but in England the client has to wear a face covering. A face covering is, you know, a mask like the ones that we see that people can make themselves. Or now we're starting to see fashion ones come out. You know, we're seeing these ones now which are like a snood that you then pull up and you put behind your ears. So are they doing Wales too? That's so interesting, because last night I was reading that, but anyway, thanks for confirming that, Naomi. So this is quite important. These £200 fines. Again, I don't know how they're going to enforce this. But another thing that they have really made very, very clear, this is from the government website, this slide that we have here. There's a few things that you should be adding to your health and safety risk assessment that you've done specifically for coronavirus, and some of them are on here. You should be updating that every month. For those of you who have had visits, what you will know is that one of the first things they ask for is your risk assessment. Okay, one of the first things they ask to look at. So what they have put here, we're looking at further mitigating actions include, it says further increasing the frequency of hand washing and surface cleaning. Now, I know many of you at that point are going to say, oh, that's good, we already do like lots of cleaning of the hands and lots of sanitation. The reason why I want to bring this up, please add this to your risk assessment. So further increase, all these things are the things that on a weekly basis these people are updated with, right? And these are the things that they go in there looking for, right? So further increase, even if you're doing it a lot, please just write this in your risk assessment. But do make sure, one of the things that I've found in our workplaces, and in fact, I'm in the academy this morning. Even in the academy, when people come, when they first arrive, you know, they're very apprehensive. But what happens as, you know, as the day goes on and everybody gets comfortable, so, you know, we all start sort of putting our guard down a little bit, not deliberately. It's just a natural thing. So we must make sure that the team are really being very, very vigilant in the salon, and that we do keep up what we're doing. So it says keeping the activity time involved as short as possible, right? So they will ask you, what measures have you put in place to keep your activities as short as possible? Okay, and of course one of those could be your digital consultations, you know, your online consultations, collecting information before the client comes in. Then it says using screens or barriers to separate clients from one another. Everyone working in close proximity for an extended period of time. This is hairdressers, beauty therapists. You must wear a visor and a type 2 face mask. Don't get caught out on this. Right, this is another thing. I'm seeing people, they're not buying the right face mask. It's got to be type 2. If someone comes in, does a visit on you, and it's not type 2 masks that you've got there you go, there's a £200 fine. Okay. Okay, Alan, you catch up later. It is recorded and you can catch it up on our YouTube channel, Passion for Hair. Where are we? Working from the back, so behind the client, right? And we've had here in the academy the last couple of days, we've had hairdressers here. They've been doing bubbles and blowout, and they've been doing the 8 essential steps to financial success. And I've been telling them for 25 years, I've been teaching hairdressers You know, how to shake hands with clients and how to sit down with the client face to face, eye level, all the things for 25 years I've been teaching, and now we have to teach something different. But working from the back of the chair behind the client or from the side, regularly circling the client, so keeping moving. And unless crucial for the treatment, avoiding skin-to-skin contact and using gloves where possible. And it's the first time that using gloves where possible has popped up here. I've had a couple of people who have asked me about this. It does say where possible. It's not possible to cut hair with gloves, right? Hairdressers are already telling me that wearing the mask and the visor, you know, they just feel like they're not doing their best work. So, you know, you don't have to wear gloves. Remember, gloves actually they don't stop gloves don't stop the transference of the coronavirus. The hand sanitizing does. So, you know, making sure the team have all got hand sanitizer to hand and they're using it regularly. Claire has said here, one of the local butchers got fined £1,000 on the spot for having too many people in there. You know, it's a difficult thing, but we've got to, you know, I know we've all got varying degrees of how, you know, bad we think this thing is, and etc. But it's important, you know, that we avoid fines and we avoid the bad PR, depending on where you are on that spectrum. So, and then it says using a consistent pairing system, defined as fixing which workers work together, and if workers have to be in close proximity for a sustained period of time. Now, this is a really important one because there have been some salons, particularly, do you know, interestingly, we're on Wednesday. I don't know of any this week, but last week I knew a few salons that had clients that had contacted them to say that they had been tested positive after their appointment. And you don't have to, if that happens, if you are able to demonstrate that you very much the client's visit was controlled. In other words, the client came in, she went directly to a station, and the only other place from that station that she went was from the basin, and the only people that dealt with that client, so in a few salons last week, they were able to demonstrate that only the stylist and the apprentice had contact with that client. You don't have to close the salon. Only those people that came into contact with the client have to self-isolate, okay? And there are varying stories and versions of what that self-isolation means. So I know some salons that were told by Public Health England that their stylist had to self-isolate for 14 days. And I know other salons who were given advice that they had to isolate for, I think it was 4 to 5 days. And if they could get a negative test, they went back to work. So that was quite interesting. If you want to know who's giving that advice, it's in case it happens to you, you want that advice and not the 14-day advice. Then giving that advice was the NHBF. So some important facts and figures there. Let's make sure I am keeping. Now, sticking to the salon rules, it's a £10,000 fine. So that £1,000 fine, they're lucky because it can be up to 10,000. It depends on how many times you've been reported or you've been caught. It also depends on the severity of what's happening. But you also can face closure. I don't know anyone who's been closed by the authorities for not sticking to the rules. But nevertheless, now I just want to mention at this point, as I move from one slide to another, I was jumping up and down and going bananas for a few weeks because when the government were going on and on and on about face coverings and masks, I was getting a little bit frustrated, and that is because my personal belief is that you are able to come into contact with somebody with COVID and dodge the bullet, as it were. Not always, and it's not foul proof, but there are some things that we can do to protect ourselves. And that is making sure that you regularly sanitize your hands and you keep your hands. So if you have picked up anything, you get it off your hands quickly. Don't touch your face, because all the evidence points to the way that it enters the body is through the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. And it's hard to not touch your face, but don't touch your face. If you need to touch your face, you sanitize your hands or wash your hands for 20 seconds first thoroughly. And sanitizing your hands, I mean, you've got to make sure you get, underneath the nail and underneath your rings. You must really make sure. So sanitize your hands, don't touch your face, and keep 2 meters distance wherever you can. Anyway, I was jumping up and down for weeks. Some of you may have had one of my rants. Most certainly the people who work on and live with me know about this. I was going mad. I was like, why don't the government? And I was so happy when they changed their message to hands, face, space. But most certainly, as leaders, please keep this message going. Okay, because wearing masks protects others, right? What we do to protect ourselves is our hands, face, space. Let's see other changes that were made on the 24th of September. So where social distancing guidelines cannot be followed in full, even through redesigning a particular activity, businesses should consider whether that activity needs to continue for the business to operate, and if so, take all mitigating actions possible to reduce the risk of transmission between their staff. So I'm sure you've already done that, but they might ask you the question. I know that somebody was asked the question, what changes have you made to your services to be able to mitigate risk? Okay. So think about what your answer would be for that. Clearly, when providing close contact services, it often may not be possible to maintain social distance guidelines. As a result, personal protective equipment in the form of a visor and a type 2 face mask will be required to mitigate the risk. Further details on which can be found in section 6. So all of the time that we're reading these guidelines, there are these click-throughs, and sometimes you make a click-through and things pop up. So let me tell you something that I don't think we may have caught very well. In the salon, of course, when you're working on a client, you must wear the visor and the type 2 mask. When you're not doing a client, if you're not wearing the visor and the mask, the type 2 mask, you have to wear a face covering. Your receptionist has to wear a face covering. In the salon, we are now required to wear a face covering all the time. Okay, so I think that's a new change, something that a new change from the 24th, something that we have to be aware of. And most certainly in my salons, that was we had a big conversation yesterday about it, and it's something that we've not been that good at. But that's the reality. So the other thing, of course, that came in last week are the QR codes, which are unique to your business. Okay. Now, if you're using a point of sale system and you're already collecting information, you don't need to enforce this, but you still need to display it, because some people are taking the opportunity to scan QR codes everywhere they go, so they are quickly alerted because maybe they are vulnerable themselves, or maybe they are shielding somebody who's vulnerable. So for an example, and I know a lot of people are not fans of the QR codes, and they're not fans of the test and trace. Interesting that they changed it from track and trace, right? Because they knew that people didn't want to be tracked. But if I come into contact with anybody, I want to know, that's not COVID, by the way. I want to know quite quickly so that I can make sure I keep my distance from my mum, right? So make sure that you have got the QR code. You've got it registered, you've got it showing. You're not under any obligation, if you've got a point of sale system, to make every client do it. Thank God for that, because I was in a location last week where as people were arriving, they were telling people, could you please scan the thing? And the girl that was at the reception, she was getting a lot of flack, the poor girl. I was getting a bit angry, actually. I wanted to get up and say to people, excuse me, she's just trying to do her job, for goodness sake. They get fines for not doing this stuff. If you're not happy with it, go and stay in your house. Don't come out. But anyway, I didn't do that because everyone is living through the prism of their own beliefs. Remember that as one of the first things I said. I've been repeating it. We're all living through the prism of our own beliefs. So let's not knock people's beliefs. This is also, of course, I'm sorry the screenshot's really poor, but hopefully you've still got one of those up, right? Because that is mandatory, and it's kind of slipped off the primary. So a lot of people think, oh, you don't have to do that now because you've got that. No, you do. You have to do that, and you still have to have your measures displayed. But I think that's coming up in a second, because we now have to have it displayed, not just at the front of the building. There are measures that tell us we should have it displayed throughout, particularly in the bathroom, by the way. But I think that's coming up in a second. Okay, I think a lot of people are going to be very interested in this because the government have, in changing their guidelines, which these particular ones went live on Friday late afternoon, evening, they have changed their guidance for ventilation. So steps, this is to do with ventilation, steps that will usually be needed. Number one, increasing the existing ventilation rate by adjusting the fan speed. Okay, so previously at the top of ventilation was keep the doors and windows open. Okay, we're going to the winter now, and so we can't do that so much. They now are talking about air conditioning. Now, I want to tell you something. I have actually had air conditioning fitted into my offices 3 weeks ago to increase ventilation, because when I some of my salons, not all my salons, some of my salons have got air conditioning, and when I spoke to an air conditioning engineer, and he helped me to really understand what good air conditioning, well serviced with good filters in it, one that is attached to the outside air, it actually helps the air quality, right? So they're talking here about increasing the existing ventilation rate by adjusting the fan speed. So in other words, they're asking us to use high fan speeds. Operating the ventilation system when there are people in the building. I know people that are, people saying, oh no, don't use the air conditioning. They're telling us when you're in the building, use the air conditioning. Okay. Monitoring and managing filters in accordance to manufacturer instructions. So if you've got air conditioning and you've not had it serviced for a while, then please get it serviced. Someone's asked a question there. I can just see it's Leanne. And if I miss your question, put the question in blue, because remember, then it will come up at the end for me. Do you think that including arriving and leaving the salon? Yes, Leanne. I think you're talking about the face covering for the team. Yes. You've just had planning permission denied. Yeah, because you're a grade 1 listed building, right? Okay, well, then go back. We're in your appeal. You want this piece of information here, Jill. You've got no windows that open. It's a grade 1 listed building, Jill. Yeah, I know. I'll show you exactly where it is, Jill. Call me afterwards. Call me later. And on your appeal, this is what you must tell them. So keeping doors and windows open if possible. You'll see it's now number 4, right? Because it's getting cold. And then using ceiling fans to improve air circulation, provided there is good ventilation. Now, it made me really wonder then, using hair dryers is improving the ventilation, is it not? If a ceiling fan is improving air circulation, right, then so are the hair dryers, providing there's good ventilation. Now, ventilation is also, of course, large space. Okay, so if you've got large space, then you're lucky. But this is directly off the website. I've had lots of conversations with people about this stuff. Air conditioning, for the most part, it brings fresh air directly into the building through a filter, right? Which means that it is filtering good air into the building. Okay, and then of course it needs to be pushing other air out of the building. All right, so it's where now, why did I put this on here? Where necessary, informing clients that police and local authorities have the powers to enforce requirements in relation to social distancing. Ah, yes, and may instruct clients to disperse, leave an area, issue a false penalty notice, or take further enforcement action. So I do know that sometimes I know why I put this in here, because I know that some salons have had difficulty where clients are saying, I can't come alone, you know, and it's not genuine, and etc., etc. Your butcher needed this, Claire, right? So sometimes you've got people don't know all the rules, and even Boris got it wrong yesterday and had to apologise. So we need to know our rules, and where you're having problems with people, just say to them, please understand that we face fines up to £10,000 or closure if we don't enforce the rules. So you know, very having the right dialogue and having the confidence, you know, to it doesn't matter whether we agree with it or not. It doesn't matter whether, you know, whether we believe that COVID's real or they're anti-real. It doesn't matter. This, and I'm really sad about all of this. I've got to tell you, yesterday I had a conversation, you know, with you know, a little group over lunch that were here at the academy, and what I'm really sad about is that we're losing our liberties. And with a Swedish husband, right, where it's been very simple in their country, hands, face, space. It's all they've had to follow from the beginning, and they've had no lockdown, and so it's difficult for me to live in my country that I love. I've lived abroad, right? I love this country, and to every week have to look at us having our liberties taken away because people just can't use their common sense, you know, and learn how to keep themselves safe, then it's you know, it does make me sad, but it is what it is. And we have a legal obligation to do these things as business owners. So it talks about, in the new measures, it talks here about higher risk groups, because everybody is encouraged to come back to work. The furlough scheme is ending. I'm going to talk to you about that in a second. So although having said everyone's encouraged to come back to work, they are saying if people can do their job at home, they should do it at home. But people in our industry can't do their job at home. So what it says is we have to make mitigation for people that are in higher risk groups. And here is the absolutely off the website as they have printed it. Older males, people that have a high body mass index. And so we really ought to be, if you have people in your organization with a high body mass index, then you really ought to be having a conversation with them about making sure they keep themselves safe, and what measures you're putting in place for them. Anybody that has a health condition such as diabetes, and some of them, of course, are from BAME backgrounds. So any of those, you should also consider this in your risk assessment. Okay, so that's what it's saying there. You see, from the 1st of August, clinically extremely vulnerable individuals can return to their workplace, providing COVID secure guidelines are in place, but they should work from home wherever possible. So in other words, what they're saying is that it's our responsibility to bring these clinically extremely vulnerable individuals back to work and keep them safe. So if they can't work from home, they should be offered the option of the safest available on-site roles. So it could be that you have a stylist that maybe you have to move to reception duties if you can, or you're going to have to seek some and I'm not, by the way, I'm not saying that pregnant stylists can't work. I'm not saying that at all, because they can, and many are, but I'm just giving you an example of what you might want to do. How you risk assess that is up to you. And that's part of the problem, right? Is that we are supposedly, we're supposed to be making our own risk assessments to all of this stuff. So let's see, yeah, because it does say there, you see expectant mothers who are, as always, entitled to suspension on full pay if suitable roles cannot be found. Particular attention should also be paid to people who live with clinically extremely vulnerable individuals. And I'm sorry that some of this is stuff you don't want to hear. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm just trying to help, and I'm just trying to make sure that everybody, I appreciate what it takes to read all of this stuff and to translate it into what it means, and that's why I wanted to do that today. Steps that will usually be needed, and again, I know that this is a really touchy subject. Last year at Business Counts, I talked about mental well-being and how important it will be for leaders in the future to take into consideration the well-being of their employees. And some people weren't happy about that. Why are you? We don't want to. Oh, it's not nothing. Well, here we are. You can hardly believe that. We talked about that at Business Counts, and now we are being held responsible for taking care of people's well-being, mental well-being. And of course, Daniel brought up last year in Business Counts QR codes. Who knew? So providing support for workers around mental health and well-being. This could include advice or telephone support. Now look, we are not counsellors, okay, but what we should be doing is making note of people's well-being, and if people need help, guiding and helping them. And there are lots of ways of doing that. All it's going to cost us is a little compassion and time. A little compassion and time. We're going to be looking at this on the Business Counts workshops, the essential meetings, because of course the government last week announced that the plans to open on the 1st of October, the conference industry, they've put that back. So we've had to postpone Business Counts until they bring those measures back. But what you are allowed to do is what are called essential meetings. And so we are having those essential meetings here at the Academy. I'm going to just take this little bit of time to say we are trying to accommodate you all as best we can, but we've risk assessed we can only have 15 of you at a time. So but we're going to make it the best we possibly can in the circumstances. So Milka was talking to a lot of people yesterday. I'm a little bit more free today, so we're going to make that the best experience that we can. It's going to be great. So there is some guidance and advice there from the government, around those groups, and you can find that stuff there to help you, as it were. Remember, like there's quite a lot of, at the moment nobody can get support from their GP. The funding's just not there. But there are other things that you could do. And if you feel that there is, I'm not going to take up our time here, but I've got some ideas, I've used some ideas. And so if that's something that you need a little chat about and something that you feel that you could help people with, then just give me a call, okay? Right. If you can't work because of coronavirus, you can get SSP. I thought this was important. There's a lot of misunderstanding around this. So people can get SSP from day one if the reason they are off work is because of COVID or coronavirus, and you can reclaim that directly back from the government. Other SSP you can't, but this SSP you can. So they changed the rules. People can claim from day one, and you can claim back up to 14 days. So that is the purpose of that. And it includes where people have been told to be off because they someone in their household, could be with coronavirus. Okay. So that's that piece there. I want to make sure I don't miss any. There you go. You must pay your employee from the first qualifying day they're off work. So in some instances with COVID and coronavirus, it's the first day they're off, but it still is the third, after the third 3 days, qualifying days before. Qualifying day is a day that an employee usually works. There you go. You can reclaim 2 weeks SSP if they were off because they had coronavirus or were self-isolating or shielding, and then those other things there are very, very important. And it says you cannot reclaim SSP if your employee is off sick for any other reason. So here, as part of your risk assessment, you should ensure you have an up-to-date plan in case there is a COVID-19 outbreak. So this plan should nominate a single point of contact where possible, who should lead on contacting public health teams. So that will be the person that you nominated when you did your QR code. If there is more than one case of COVID-19 associated with your workplace, you should contact Public Health England because that is then considered an outbreak. And if they declare an outbreak, then that is the point at which they're going to want to see all your records are up to date, your test and trace records, so the clients that have been in the salon, etc., etc., and you have to help them to track all the people down if they consider an outbreak, which is why it's really important that you must be disciplined. The team must be disciplined about what they do because they could end up causing an outbreak in the in the business, and that's not good. The PR's not good. All of those things are not good. So the furlough scheme is about to end at the end of October. My advice to you is use the furlough scheme as much as you can. I've spoken to a few people. We were all busy, and it's gone off now. I want to tell you that most people that I am talking to are 20 to 30% down on last year. Okay, so if that's you, then your business is normal. My businesses are down on last year. Okay, they estimate that up to 40% of salon clients have still not yet visited a client. I've had people ringing me and asking me, talking to me, how can I get those clients out? You can't. They're not coming out. So he's not coming out. He's been a naughty boy. So, we've got to accept that. So my advice to you is use the furlough scheme whenever you can. You can part-time furlough people. So that means they can work 2 days, be furloughed 3 days. You can, there was a big restaurant club chain up in Manchester. He was on the news this morning. He was saying he has, because of the 10 o'clock, this, that, and the other, he's put everyone back on furlough for the next 4 weeks because it's cheaper for their business to be like that than it is for them to try and operate under the current rules. So don't be afraid to use that scheme. Okay. Now, that when that ends, it was good news for our industry, not so good for other industries. But from the 1st of November, for 6 months, the government are running what they're calling the job support scheme. And what that means is you can, what they're trying to do is they're trying to save meaningful jobs. Okay. In other words, after the 6 months, if this thing gets in control, will it be a job that will pop back to normal? Okay. So the government are willing to support that. And my advice to any salon owner is you should use this scheme. You will need to use this scheme. If you don't, you are going to be eating into money, cash, that you don't need to be eating into. Okay. So We're going to talk more about this at Business Counts. I've been doing quite a bit of work on this. But here is what it really means. It means any employee, whether they've been furloughed or not, any employee, as long as they were employed by the 23rd of September. So take note, anybody you took on after the 23rd of September, or you take on from here on in, you cannot use the job support scheme for those people. Okay, so I can see Susan's asking the question, is it not better to just go on short-time working? Not for the employee, because the employee, of course, is going to lose too much money, right? And what the government are trying to do is stop people from going on to benefits. Okay, so that's why that wouldn't work. Short-time working, it would work for the employer, wouldn't work for the employee. So that's what the government are trying to stop. So the employee, if you have paid someone across 2p after the 23rd of September, is that your question, Janice? It's a specific, then 2p rules mean that that person's entitlement follows them. What that means in terms of your claim, I don't know. I think you're going to have to either speak to ACAS or NHBF on that. Or of course the organisation that we make this claim to, which of course is help me out. God, there's so many government agencies. Anyway, they have to work at least a third of their hours. So you have to make sure that that's how we will know that it's a meaningful job, right? They're still needed for a third of the time. But for the other time that they're not working, what will happen is that the government will pay a third, the employer will pay a third, and the employee will lose a third. Now, the government are not going to pay the employer's NI and the pension. That will also fall to the employer. So it is going to cost the employer money. But of course, the government will argue, whether you like it or not, they would say that is what the bounce back loans were for, right? And if you've not got a bounce back loan, maybe give me a call. I know some people don't want to be in debt. I am, I'm fast approaching my retirement years. In fact, I'm over my private pension retirement age, right? I bear no bones. I'm 58 years old, right? I don't want to be getting into debt, but, it is what it is. So this slide that we have up here, what it shows is that if the employee does 33% of their hours, the hours they're not working are 67%. Jude, I hope he's doing right too. Please call me, okay? Because some accountants have made some terrible mistakes. So call me and I'll give you an overview of this is what you should be like. This is how you double check. Anyway, if the employee works a third of the time, they're not working 67% of the time, the employee will earn 78% of their wage. Okay, so this, Susan, is why the government have put this in place rather than short timing people. The government grant will be 22% of the wages, and the employer cost will be 55% of the normal wages. That will not be taken into consideration the employer's NI, the pension contribution, and the accrued holiday. Okay, those things won't be included in that. If the employee does 40%, they're not working 60% of the time, they will be earning 80% of their money. The government grant will be 20%. It will be costing the employer 60%. Okay, so you can see there 50%. It's going to be costing the employer 67%. 60% of the time it's going to be costing the employer 73%, and 70% of the time it's going to be costing the employer 80%. We need to do some number crunching stuff on this stuff. We have to make some decisions about what we're going to do over the next 6 months. And if you do nothing, you are going to eat into your loans and you're going to eat into your personal wealth. So we need to do these numbers. We need to take some decisions and we need to get on with it. Very, very important. So it's capped, but I don't think the cap's going to not going to affect any of us. Okay, the last thing. One thing about the job retention scheme, you have to do it in blocks of 7 days. In other words, you have to this week decide what is happening next week. Whereas with the furlough scheme, you can furlough people on quite short notice. You can't do that with the job support scheme. Okay, so that's another change. Okay, one last thing. You may have heard that there are going to be qualifications around controlling COVID. They're already out. I'm going to give you some free stuff that you can do that might lead you onto the qualification. But this lead I'm going to give you here, the qualification is £65. Okay, so it's a level 2. It's a VTCT iTech level 2 award in infection prevention for hairdressing and barbering services. I'm going to point you in the direction of the free stuff. And then maybe you want to go on to doing the actual qualification, which through here is £65. So these free courses, this one, what is COVID-19 and who can catch it, is a module. That one's free. The importance of hand and personal hygiene. This is exactly what we were talking about, how you keep yourself safe. That module is free, so you could get all your team doing it if you want to. And then, as I say, the full level 2 qualification is £65 to do it. I wanted to have the link up here for you, but I'm so sorry I couldn't work out how to do it this morning. So I'm going to put the link on our P4H leadership group, Facebook group. Okay. I'm going to put the link up there. They're going to get inundated today, I'm sure, with links. This is through TricoCare. But there are other providers, and if you want to do it through another provider, that's up. Go ahead, you go do it. It doesn't need to be you that's doing it. I'm not doing it, but I've got someone who's taking her final exam today, actually, and she's going to give me some feedback on who she thinks can get through that exam. So that's what I'm going to leave you with today. I wanted to do it in 45, and I've done it in 55. I wanted to do it in 45. I've done it in 55. Is that what I said? So thanks everybody for joining me. I hope you have found this helpful and interesting. It is going up on our YouTube channel. And if we're still trying to get you sorted out for our business counts essential workshops, we're still working it out, but you are going to be safe, I promise you. It's going to be a great day for you. I know lots of you are meeting up with your friends and staying in local hotels. Keep us informed of that so that we can anyone who's looking for a group to join, we can make sure that they get to join a group, somewhere, something that you're doing and something that you are getting on with, etc., etc. Have a great day, everybody, and I look forward to speaking to you all soon.